Alec, let's talk about your marriage now, okay? I see.
Do we have to?
Well, you do, because you're in a good place about it. You have distance now. You can talk. Tell me about Kim. What was it about Kim Basinger that attracted you to her, besides the obvious beauty?
Right. What I mean,
what was it?
To me, none of that matters. What I've learned is that there are relationships. This is why I wrote the book, A Promise to Ourselves,
right,
from St. Martin's Press.
Yes.
I wrote the book because there are people I know who they can have a collaborative divorce. They can have a divorce in which everybody has some dignity and they can resolve these issues without lawyers and judges and court-ordered therapists and everything intruding in their lives. We're going to talk about that with some people that I brought on the show with me, Mike McCormick, and some people who are activists in the shared parenting movement. Let's put it this way. So much of what I went through the last 8 years, it was unnecessary. It was completely unnecessary. And it costs a fortune. And more of the psychic toll. I mean, I aged like 20 years in the last 8 years. It killed me. I was really tired.
I know. The book, it comes through in your book.
Yeah, it's pretty heavy.
That you went through quite
But that's
a bit.
behind, in other words, all of that is behind me now, to the extent that I think that people do get tired. I mean, I can't think of anybody I have less respect for than some of the lawyers involved with my case and some of the judges.
Well, see, you know, I'm divorced also, but we had no money, so we didn't engage.
How long were you married?
16 years.
How long did you know him before you got married?
16 minutes.
Right, so you married somebody you didn't know?
A year and a half.
So, you
I met
knew
him in college.
So you were very young, and you were married to him, and you no children?
We do have a daughter.
You have a daughter.
Yeah.
How old is your daughter now?
She's 37 right now.
And how does she get along with both? Is she still alive?
Yes, he is.
And she's cool with both parents?
She gets along with him. It was a difficult divorce, as you know.
She can't stand. Is she close with you?
No. We don't have the alienation issue in our family.
So you did not stand in his way from parenting the child?
Not at all.
See, that's the way that it should be.
No, and he certainly didn't.
You should encourage people should encourage it.
But you say something about 50-50 custody. I'm not sure if I agree with that particularly. I don't know.
Why? What about it?
Well, because why should it be 50-50?
Well, you're on The View. You have a constituency you have to suck up to, a feminist constituency.
No, it has nothing to do with that.
Oh, it doesn't? Oh,
if the father is more present, then he should be there more in the divorce.
No. But here's the thing, and that is that I believe that 50-50 custody should be the default position for men who want and earn 50-50 custody. If during a divorce proceeding or custody proceeding, you determine that the father was never there, he's only doing it to spite the mother. He's only taking half of something that he doesn't want to reduce someone else's time. Like in West Virginia has a very important law right now where custody is allocated after an analysis is done of how the parenting duties were divided during the marriage. So, for example, if you and I are married and we have a kid and you go off to work every day, and I come and we get divorced and I say, I would like to have 50-50 custody, and you say, no, you worked all the time, I can go to court in West Virginia and say, well, you worked all the time too. And we both had careers that took us away from the child, so it wasn't like you parented more than I did. But understand also that no one who I work with or no one who I'm in touch with in terms of this issue, like McCormick and people like that, men who abuse their wives, men who abuse their children, men who neglect their children and don't pay their custody and so forth, those people are the enemies of the shared parenting movement.
Of course.
I don't want just anybody to automatically get custody. I want qualified men who want it, because many men don't want it. That's a very important issue as well.
Do you remember the moment when your marriage fell apart? Because I can almost remember mine.
Tell me yours.
No, you tell me yours.
No, tell me yours.
I'm sick of myself already.
I'll tell you what color underwear I have on, and you tell me
what was the moment when you said, you know, this is not going to work?
You know, I don't really, I can't even really remember. It's all like a blur to me now, you know, and it doesn't really matter to me. I feel like I met someone, and they were someone who was an incredibly alluring person, and I was new in my business, and I met someone who was very interesting, and I was at an age.
How old were you?
Well, I met her, I was 32.
Oh, so you were not such a baby.
No, I wasn't a kid. You know, I was 32, and I got married 3 years later. I was 35. My daughter was born when I was 37.
And joining us now in New York is Michael McCormick. He's executive director of the American Coalition for Fathers and Children, and Mark Tabb, who co-wrote A Promise to Ourselves with Alec. Greetings, gentlemen.
Hello.
So,
hi, Jordan.
Hi, how are you out there?
I'm doing great.
Michael, let me start with you. What is the importance of this book, do you think?
Well, I think with respect to that book, Alec has articulated something that hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people in this country have experienced, and that's the pain of separation from their child. That's the inability to parent the way they want to parent.
And you call that parental alienation syndrome?
In an extreme form, it's parental alienation. Now, I'm not going to debate whether it's a syndrome or whether it's not a syndrome, but certainly parental alienation exists, and anybody who works in this area and parents all around the country have actually experienced that.
And Mark, you helped Alec write the book, yes?
Yes.
He also wrote a book with your brother, Stephen, right?
I met Mark through my brother, Stephen. He'd written Stephen's book, Unusual Suspects, with him, and I met Mark. We all went down to the Super Bowl a couple years ago in Miami, and Mark was just a great guy, and I loved working with him. He was a doll.
Mike, isn't it sort of natural sometimes when people get divorced for one parent to be somewhat alienated from the kid?
You know, there's some estimates that say that in up to 80% of the cases, there's some level of alienation. But what we see is that there's a wide range. So it can be from very mild to very, very severe.
In Alec's case, it was severe, in your opinion.
In my opinion, it was severe. I mean, he was frustrated at every turn with respect to just enjoying a natural relationship with his daughter and being her father.
What made it so severe, do you think? And whose fault was that?
Well, I think there's a combination of factors there. I think that the court system today enables a parent who's inclined to be an alienator. The court will allow that to happen. I think that's unfortunate. All the vehicles to fight are already built into the system if there's a predisposition to that. So I think that's
an important distinction, and that is, forget about the litigants, because which is hard to do, but just for the purposes of this discussion, you know, litigants come and people come to the dissolution of a marriage with a lot of bitter feelings. Marriage is still a very important commitment to people. They have a lot of hope. They certainly didn't plan on things going that way. There's a lot of blame and acrimony. These are two people that should not be principal witnesses against each other in a trial. They are biased, prejudiced people, and the courts know that, and the courts treat in family law and in divorce custody law, this is a civil proceeding that metes out criminal punishment. You were denied your rights as a parent based on the testimony of very, very biased people, not just the other, your ex-spouse, but some of her collateral witnesses as well. And custody evaluations are very, very biased. But the thing is, the courts know this. The courts, and they do nothing to stop it because it's a racket whereby people are lining their pockets with a lot of money.
Well, we discussed that before about how it's just a big racket. Do you agree with that, Mark?
Well, I do. And one of the things, too, with parental alienation is it's not always the father who is alienated from the child. I'm working on a book currently with a woman who went through this very same thing where her son, the alienation was so extreme that the father had remarried, and the stepmother told the child, because this couple was very young whenever they divorced, the new stepmother told the child, I am your real mother. This other woman, she's just this crazy lady who wants to pretend like she's your mother. So let's just go along with it from time to time, but I'm really your mother. That's the depth of the degree of alienation that she experienced. So it's not just something that is perpetuated against men, but it's also, women experience this as well. It's when you have one parent or the other that has an alienating nature, all bets are off on what's going to take place.
Is it mostly women? Is it mostly women who are the alienators?
I think it's more importantly, not in some gender-specific way, women are more likely to have the power to alienate. Women are more likely to be given primary custody of a child because of the way that the processes have evolved over the years. So a woman is more likely to have primary custody and therefore alienate the father from them. But the point is that the courts and the judges, forget about the lawyers. The lawyers are going to do anything they can to keep conflict resolution out of the courtroom. The judges should know that what's going on and how this stuff can be circumvented. There are recommendations that judges and some family therapists who work outside the system. Some of the people that I spoke to for this book, and I'd love you to comment about this, some of the people I spoke to outside this book who were family therapists who did not rely on the state-sponsored family law system to make a living. They weren't a part of the conspiracy.
Yes.
They work in family law outside of that. They don't take referrals from judges and so forth. They have their own very healthy practices. These people spoke scathingly about the system themselves.